Instead of the state of California or the city of Los Angeles helping the people, the thousands of Americans who lost their homes in the wildfires, instead of helping them, you know what Los Angeles is doing? Yeah, they're doing an emergency measure for criminal illegals so that those criminal illegals who are afraid to go to work can still get their rent paid. Rebuilding Americans' homes, giving money to criminal illegals. Let's get into it. Here we go. Here's a pretty good video from Turning Point USA.
Federal contractors have cleared more than 2 million tons of fire debris from nearly 10,000 properties.
As to investigation, I view it as a gross incompetence.
There are so many homes and voids on that hill, and each void is a family's story or history.
It seems that some of our leaders are singing praises about how quickly things are happening, but that's not how we feel as residents.
News Nation exclusively obtained documents that revealed missteps by officials in California.
3,000 Palisades victims suing the state of California.
We've paid our taxes, we've done all the right things, and some more people need to step up and be held accountable.
Who do you think needs to be held accountable?
I think our leaders.
We already have a team of looking and reimagining LA 2.0.
Yeah, affordable housing.
2.0.
Today, we are announcing the arrest of 29-year-old Jonathan Rinderknecht for igniting a fire that ultimately burned down the Palisades.
The whole thing is really frustrating because obviously they've determined that the fire started a week earlier.
I'm sad about how it happened. I'm devastated that it was intentional, but my anger now is for kind of the rebuild stuff and how slow some things are moving.
How many of their houses are already rebuilt and how many are still in the process, do you think?
I would say less than 0.25% are rebuilt.
Granted, that's a YMCA executive director. Even if you had a complete rebuild, fire happened less than a year ago. Complete rebuild, I mean, you're talking about maybe some remodeling has taken place. So between permitting and actual construction time, there's nobody, right, that's gone from start to finish throughout that process in that short period of a time in California. And yet, criminal illegals, hey, I don't really want to go to work today because ICE might get me. They're getting their rent paid. They've got their roof over their head. But, let's not focus on, right?
We're still not able to get permit. Somebody had asked me, "Oh, so are you guys rebuilt yet?" And I was like, "Oh, I guess they don't understand." I was like, "No." I'm like, "Lots are empty."
Yep. Wow. Crazy. California Senate passes bill that will allow LA to buy fire-ravaged lots to build low-income housing. Kind of sounds like a land grab to me in the name of affordable housing.
This seems like some of those beautiful property in the world, and they're not rebuilding very quickly on it, and they're even talking about putting affordable housing and things like that on there. How do you and your neighbors feel about all that?
Well, nobody thinks that's a good idea.
They were going to put some homeless shelter of sorts. And I was like, are you kidding me?
It's 9 months after the fire and, we're still in the middle of a settlement talks with our insurance company. So
we were dropped by State Farm. And we lost a lot of money along with a lot of other Palisadians.
I'm so disappointed. I grew up in Ohio, but I have friends that grew up here. One moment, sweetie. And they are so let down. Like growing up here in the Palisades and in Brentwood, they are so let down and disappointed that this is the state that California is in. And they've actually left. They've moved away already and bought homes elsewhere. Some of my dearest friends that grew up here because they're so over it and they're so upset.
Wow. So how many people do you think left because of all of these government failures?
More than 50%. I'm just basing that on our preschool class. 3 children out of 14 came back to my kids' preschool.
We've already lost people to moving out of state. We're already losing people.
So we knew the outcome would be such. I mean, this is California. The folks that had their homes taken Unfortunately, what you want to say is that they voted for the politicians that have mucked up the process, put layers and layers and layers of governmental regulation, overburdened the construction cost process, created a situation where you've got a limited supply of land. And then you got a situation where the government didn't really prepare their wildfire policy. Their forestry wildfire policy doesn't really prevent from rampant fires coming through and just doing their thing. And then you didn't have the water in the reservoir. You didn't have the water flowing to the fire hydrants. You've got this guy coming in who's now being blamed for starting the fire, but they let it fester for a week. Is there any liability there? Well, let's get into some of these issues. And then on top of this, you've literally got Los Angeles going down
and
this
other
road.
protections.
Let's see what this one looks like. This is nuts.
LA County has declared a state of emergency over the immigration raids. The Board of Supervisors voted today. Board members say the raids are preventing people from going to work and forcing some businesses to close. The emergency allows the board to look at enacting an eviction moratorium and other protections for people impacted by the raids. And this news just coming into our newsroom. Will, of course, continue to follow it. Breaking news now. LA County has declared a state of emergency.
A state of emergency gives them power to provide assistance for residents they say have suffered financially from ongoing federal immigration raids. It's wild that you've got these two storylines going on simultaneously, right? You're just like, wait a minute. These are people that have been residents here, taxpayers here, for years and years and years and years. And they're basically essentially getting zero help. I didn't even get into the $100 and whatever million that was raised from that concert, that music event, that it all went to these nonprofits. And well, maybe a little bit of money actually got to those who need it. But LA residents, Palisade Fires, they're basically saying, we haven't seen a drop of any of the funds. There's that big thing of where did all the money go? Well, it went to, nonprofits that are somewhat related, like a food bank. A bunch of money went to a food bank. Okay, so if you were homeless from having your house burned down, you could go to a food bank, but clearly that's not what is going to happen to the vast majority of these folks. They're going to work out something, but the money just disappears, right? So let's look at a series of articles. This is 9 months after the fires. Residents continue to struggle with housing stability and finances. What does that look like? 75% of Pacific Palisades residents and 67% of Altadena residents are in temporary housing. And they think that most of them feel like they're going to have to move, at least once, if not twice in the interim before they get some kind of housing stability actually squared away. Nearly 13,000 homes were lost or damaged in the Eaton and Palisades fires. Department of Angels, a fire recovery program launched after the fires, surveyed more than 2,300 fire-impacted residents and found that 8 in 10 and 9 in 10 have not returned home. Yeah. And you know what? We talked about this. And it's going to be a lot longer than that. It's 2-3 years on the inside. Like we heard the one guy say, he's still in the middle of negotiations with his fire insurance company, right? Middle of negotiations. Then he gets that money. And then, if it's not a simple rebuild, he can go out and spend some money on getting an architect together, put up the plans, take the plans to the city, and then go through the arduous process of getting your plans permitted by the city of Los Angeles or whatever entity it is. And on top of all that, you've got the ridiculous cost of construction in California. You've got just all of those situations where everything is more expensive. That comes down on top of homeowners looking to rebuild something they already had, which arguably was taken from them or might have been taken from them from the standpoint of, hey, there's no water in the reservoir. Well, that's a state issue. Is it a state issue? Is it a city issue? Is it a forestry? Who's responsible? Who's on first? But somehow, LA is able to get an emergency deal together and fund the rent of those who should be deported because they're criminal illegals from the community. They're getting their rent paid because they're afraid of going to work. Make that make sense. It just makes zero sense, right? Many survivors are being left behind while others are spending much of their time in dwindling finances to fight for a sliver of what they lost and often coming up short. Miguel Santana, chief executive of California Community Foundation, one of the co-founders of Department of Angels, said that these hardships have been especially harrowing for seniors and families earning less than $100K a year. The report highlights that 1 in 5 households have had to cut back on food, and about 1 in 6 have had to skip medical care because the process takes so long, because it's so bogged down in just nonsense. Now, I'm not saying other areas, if you had your house burned down in Utah somewhere, I'm not saying it's going to be dramatically different. But California has such an onerous layer of just nonsense for anything to do with construction, anything to do with housing, because they feel like the more layers of just complete nonsense, the more that they are protecting the consumer, right? It's basic socialism. Basic socialism. Situation is becoming so dire that some people are making decisions to skip meals because they're having challenges covering costs they've had to incur as results of the fires. Because all the money that they normally used just to live is now going towards efforts of rebuilding their home. And we heard of the number of people that are just like, boop, I'm out. I mean, I don't think I'd want to stick around and have to go through the rebuild process. Compete with literally thousands of other people for limited rental housing, and then maybe have the threat of having a, affordable community go up across the street that Gavin Newsom has commandeered because now is an opportune time to take something that got burned down. Oh, let's put in some affordable housing. What could go wrong? Let's take some people off the streets that are still doing drugs and throw them into affordable housing, and it should work out fine. Should work out fine, right? No, you got shenanigans for days. That's what gets created with affordable housing. Shenanigans for days, weeks, months, and years, invariably. Now it's taking a whole new level where people are making very tough choices around their quality of life. Again, what I would say is that unfortunately, these people, vast majority of them, have voted blue, probably their whole entire adult lives. And now, unfortunately, that is coming back from the standpoint of, look at all this stuff we have to deal with. That's the real nuts and bolts of living in a community where you've got just layer after layer after layer of nonsense that makes construction and housing super expensive and makes it prohibitive to reconstruct in the event of something as crazy as the fire. Now, with the fire being blamed on one dude, essentially, right? It's arson. He kicked it off on January 1st, somewhere right in there. And then it didn't get, watered down to the point where it was out. Came alive when those winds came out, right? That's what they're saying there. Is the city off the hook for its liability? No. And a lot of people are saying, because when it happened, before, during, and after, they had liability from the standpoint of their preparedness wasn't great. During, no water in the reservoir. And then now what we're talking about here, after, there's no concerted effort to make sure that this goes really quickly. And it's just not going to, because that is not how a big blue liberal city operates. It's just not how it operates. You just got layer after layer of nonsense that's completely unnecessary. And where you see the difference is What does it cost to get up and off the ground a new construction home in pick any major county in California versus what it costs, land acquisition, soft cost, permitting in a big red city like Oklahoma City in Oklahoma. And that's my go-to because that's as red as it gets. Why are they able to construct housing like that? Why are they able to permit massive developments just like that? Whereas in California, getting one building permit is just absolute pulling teeth. Why are they able to do that? They don't have all the regulations, and they've made it a priority that they know affordable housing, actual affordable housing. And I'm talking about land costs, construction, soft costs, all that stuff is a fraction in these cities that haven't burdened it with all this nonsense that protects the consumer. They just blow and go. Texas blows and goes. Florida blows and goes. By that, I mean they build them, they cut up the land, build it. People have got housing. Now, another factor there is that in Texas and in Oklahoma and those types of environments, you can build a smaller home and builders still make a decent profit because your land acquisition is fairly affordable and you've got new construction where people can actually afford new construction. I'm going to head down to Oklahoma City for Thanksgiving. And last time when I was there, I'll be really curious this time to see how much prices have moved up or maybe down. I'll be looking at some of the communities where you could get a nice little 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single-story home, brick-facing, 2-car garage on a little lot for just over $300,000. New construction in a new construction development. You can't get a lot for that in California. You go way out in the Dingles somewhere, maybe north and east. You might be able to replicate that. But the vast majority of housing in California, as in Washington, as in Oregon, is just outrageously expensive. You got median housing prices of $900,000, $1 million, sometimes more, median. So this notion of new construction at $300,000 isn't there. So is any of this stuff a shocker here? No, it's not. We knew it was coming. We knew it was the reality. And now you've got people moving left, right, and center because they know what the deal is too. Many in Pacific Palisades blame LA City Hall for fire failures, but can they win in court? This is a great sign here. Karen Bass resign now. Can they win in court? The bottom line is probably not. Probably not. Actually proving negligence and proving liability is going to be super hard. And I know there's been multiple lawsuits filed. We'll just have to kind of see what takes place. But what I'm focusing on is there are things that could be done, but that is not happening because LA is too busy handing out freebies to the criminal illegals and making that known. We support our community of criminal illegals who aren't here legally. Yeah. Does that make a lot of sense to you? Doesn't make much sense to me either. But, misinformation and misrepresentations, Palisades fire victims lob new claims against LA state agencies. There's all kinds of stuff just going back and forth. Fire victims with smoke, chemical damage not covered by California insurers. And that was most notably the California Fair Plan right here, is denying claims to help with remediation. And the reason why may surprise you, because the policies basically, unless your house burns down, they're going to give you a little bit of the chemicals to clean out some of the smoke, but not much. You probably need 60, 70 grand to clean out an average home of all the toxins and whatever, and maybe way, way more depending on what you've got going on. And yet they're being given in this article here, like $600-700 of chemicals. There you go, Jimmy. Hope you can get your house squared away. This article here, it came up with a number of the number of tons that were released into the air. And let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, this is from this article, 6 billion pounds. 6 billion pounds of toxic material was released when it came to these fires, and 10,000 structures were in the fire zone that remain. Those structures are contaminated with toxic materials. You've got a cleanup project for decades happening here. Decades. I mean, you can see why people are just like, stick a for sale sign in front of my lot. I'm not dealing. I want out. We'll let somebody else take over my project. Suspected arsonist behind blaze, the prosecutors say ignited Palisades fire hit with new charges. They're just ramrodding this guy because this is our victim, or this is our guy that we're going to point at and say, he did it. He did it. I'm not as worried about him doing it versus, some power lines coming down, but the process after that, that's what my mind always goes to. And I always kind of think it's going to take forever for this stuff to get rebuilt. Forever. I don't know. Is that 7-8 years? Probably. And then there's also this one. California wildfire victims left wondering where $100 million went following fire aid benefit concert. This is one of those headlines that continually gets brought up. And I believe it went out to the NGOs. It went out to all the nonprofits. And they've spent it accordingly. They've handed it out accordingly. Some fire victims probably got a little bit of money, but like most nonprofits, a lot of it went to covering overhead, their own overhead, and then a little bit went to the people that it was meant for. But that is how this whole, complex works, right? These nonprofits take in a ton of money and don't necessarily hand it out to people that are in need. And yet the government is telling criminal illegals, we'll cover your rent. We got you covered. We got you covered. Wild stuff. Here's that LA County officials approve emergency measure over immigration raids. So again, let me get this shenanigan, in profile here. You've got criminal illegals living in the country. ICE is always doing what ICE has done, getting rid of said criminal illegals from the country, because that's their job. And California has thousands and thousands and thousands of people who are unhoused because a botched job by not only the state, the county, and the individual cities, thousands and thousands of people that are just out of luck, and they're battling to get their homes back up and running. But LA is giving money to the criminal illegals so they don't have to worry about being homeless. They get caught going to work. Make that make sense. How does that make any sense whatsoever? It simply doesn't, does it? It just doesn't. You're like, well, that's one of those things I'll never truly understand. And people that support this, you guys are out of your mind. You guys are absolutely out of your mind. You've lost touch with reality. This is the most ridiculous thing ever. But most of the people that watch my show already know that, right? Already know that. Because this isn't news for ridiculous people. This is news for reasonable people. And paying criminal illegals rent money not due to them while others can't get their house back together. That's just not reasonable. That is just Shenanigan City 101, right? Let's drive there and let's have shenanigans happen to us. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. I'd love to have you subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with friends and family, gets that message out. Thanks again for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next episode. Bye for now.